Today, we're going to share data that showed how Tesla did in electric vehicle sales in 2023. Not only did Tesla dominate the top 10 list, it outsold all other electric vehicles included in the top 10 combined. And as we reported already, Tesla reached a market share of 4.2% of all vehicles, including gas cars. This is the first time Tesla is now selling more cars than Volkswagen. The growth is what is actually stunning. Over the past 2 years, Tesla grew its US sales by 5 times greater than its second-place competitor. This is a massive lead, and guess what? It's likely to just keep growing. Let's talk to Larry Goldberg today. He's a multi-entrepreneur. Thank you for joining me, Larry.
Great to be here, Herbert.
So lots of numbers to show, lots of graphs. The question is, Tesla's definitely dominating, but is this just going to continue? And how far ahead might this show? I don't want to get too far ahead, but let's take a look at what happened in 2023. So this is an article showing that Tesla dominated top 10 best-selling vehicles, EVs, in the US. Here's the table. So you can see the Tesla Model Y, 394,000. Tesla Model 3, number 2, top 10 in the US, 2020. And if you combine all of this, 3 to 10, of course, you can take out the Model X, which is here. Combined, they're less than this number, 394, and they're just slightly above this number, 220. What's your thoughts on this, Larry?
It's very hard to find a chink in the armor.
Yeah.
I mean, Tesla is dominating the US. Now, the real question is, how fast will that entire EV market grow? I mean, the growth was fairly significant in 2023. I think it's going to continue in 2024 with the $7,500, at the dealer discount. So, this is Tesla's race to lose, but it doesn't look like there are any other runners. I mean, it's amazing. 2025 was the year, 2023 was the year. Back in 2018, the General Motors were going to bring out 18 models or 11 models, I forget even the number. 2025 is when Toyota's supposed to have 35 models. All of this stuff the amazing thing is people criticize Tesla for coming out late with the Cybertruck. But where are the others with all their promises? It's amazing.
That's a great point. Exactly. So Tesla sets its own standards, and then if it's just delayed, people hit them on, but everyone else is not showing up at all, which is unfortunate. Let's share more information here. It says here that, so this is what happened last year. More accolades for Tesla's leadership in emerging market. So landed 3 spots in the top 10 best-selling EVs list, with its leading vehicle, the Model Y, outselling all non-Tesla EVs in the top 10 combined. According to this EV sales data by Kelley Blue Book and Cox Automotive. Yeah, we just talked about this. Tesla outsold everybody at 394. All other non-Tesla EVs in the top 10 combined only made up 246,000 units. And then the Model 3, second best-selling EV, 220. So just barely behind that. Model S didn't show up. Model X did come up there at 23,000. And then, yeah, this is pretty good numbers. So the next data set, I love this because I haven't seen this before. This is the percentage of cars that are electric vehicle that a brand is selling. So, of course, Tesla is 100% electric vehicle. So they're 100% club. Fisker, Rivian, and VinFast are all, they only sell electric vehicles. BMW is at 12.5% of all their cars are selling the electric vehicle. So it's BMW first, Volkswagen next, Mercedes, and then way down here at the bottom is Toyota. They're just barely making any EVs at all at this point. What's your thoughts on this graph?
Very sad. I'm wondering, though, in this graph, if Cox have incorporated just battery EVs, or whether, in fact, these are, these so-called EVs that, are really ICE cars with a small battery in it, battery motor in it. Because BMW had the i3, but I think they stopped selling in 23. I'd like to delve into this a little bit deeper, but it's interesting that the German manufacturers are actually in the game, as opposed to the US manufacturers who are just hardly in the game. Now, Ford and Chev, I mean, they're behind, Hyundai, they're behind all the, all the German models, even Volvo. It's very sad. It's very sad. And, Ford had a good opportunity, but both Ford and Chev have really blotted their copybook by bringing out, EVs of generation 0.5. They've taken, basically ICE car principles and just try to apply them to an EV, and it's been a disaster. So their first generation really are not even a full generation; they're a half generation of engineering, in my view, in my judgment. I mean, we've seen the teardown, and in the teardowns, there's some very ugly stuff. So, it's costing them dramatically more money, and they're trying to sell it for dramatically more money, and they're really struggling. So it's sad.
Larry, what's your opinion on the concept that, so first of all, that's a fantastic way to frame this, right? If you look at that list, BMW, Volkswagen, Mercedes, and Audi, at least they're trying to make a shot at it. Over 10% of their cars are now electric vehicles. But Ford at 3.8%, Chevy at 3.7%, they're barely there. Toyota at 0.5%. So the question I have for you is some people think that we're still very early in the electric vehicle market. And that Toyota, when they get their act together, when they get going, they're gonna just don't count them out. They're gonna dominate. They're gonna take over. Meanwhile, we've heard, I think, what is it? 4 of the 6 top EV car manufacturers have made an announcement that they're going to delay their plans. Is this too late, or is it still early?
It's definitely not early. Whether it's too late is really the open question, because BYD, they look like they have really got to their second generation and quite successfully. And it's really BYD and Tesla's race right now. Tesla really dominate outside of China. BYD, because of its depth of models, dominates in China. Now, the quality of those models are in question, and the dealership model is in some question, because apparently there are a fairly large number of vehicles in dealerships, which kind of calls into question their end user sales in the year of 2023, when they were supposed to exceed that of Tesla. So while there's some open questions, there's very little doubt that it's Tesla and BYD's world. And outside of China, it's Tesla's world, and all these other companies are just paying rent. They're just paying rent. So I think it is too late. Nick Colas, who I really respect, feels that Toyota is gonna get there. I'm having a hard time seeing it, just given the missteps that I've seen out of Ford and GM. But look, I'm not a car person. I don't manufacture, really. That's not really my business. I sold software to manufacturers and got quite deep into their business, but it's really a difficult call. Toyota's really got a tremendous depth of engineering talent. They should have been able to do better. So it's just a mystery to me. So I'm the wrong guy to ask, obviously, because I don't get it.
I agree with you. We'll see what happens. But here's a stat that I've been trying to dive into a little deeper. There's a stat that says that it's not a stat. It's kind of like a general rule of thumb that if you have at least 220,000 cars per year, that's when you're able to create a profitable car. That's what happened with Tesla. When they hit that, then they start to become much more profitable. If you are under 200,000, you just don't have the scale to be able to take advantage of the cost and supply chain efficiencies. And so these guys here are all losing so much money. So if the years go on and Tesla and BYD continue to grow they're going to be able to reduce their costs and higher margins and be able to produce cars, more effectively, better cars. Meanwhile, everybody else is so far behind. And so I just can't see how, Toyota can ever catch up. But yeah, you're just saying don't count them out.
Yeah, Tesla has had an aggressive year of price cutting, which everybody is in one way or another a dither about. I posted last week that what has occurred to me is that this has been a strategic move by Tesla to reposition their two mass market vehicles lower in the marketplace in order to expand the TAM, because they've got this productive capacity they need to use. And they need to introduce the next model as a everyday car, as an every person car. So what they've done is they've said, right, we're going to step down from this pedestal that we're on, and we're going to go to the mass market, and we're going to start by dropping the price of the cars. I had a lot of pain and suffering on X by posters who, called into question the whole process and sort of mixed it up with this issue of advertising. I think they're completely different issues. But in order to create a mass market car or mass market appeal for their car, they've had to bring the car down from a luxury, high-end car and reposition it into the middle range of the car so that they really expand the TAM quite significantly. And they're killing it. And their competition is no longer the EV cars that these other makers are making, who are still trying to make EV cars that are, fancy and so on and so forth. I think they're, instead of being one step behind now, they're two steps behind. And it's going to kill them, because the pricing that Tesla has got now is killing them. And I think that Tesla's pricing is pitched correctly. And so I don't see how they get out of the bind. Now, Volkswagen, Mercedes and BMW have got another play. You can't look at the US numbers. You have to look at the European numbers as their primary market. And they're actually coming out with their second generation vehicles, and they have a platform for their EVs in Europe, particularly because they have tight commercial relationships with the big buyers, the major buyers of vehicles in Europe, who are the corporations. So they have an opportunity, and Tesla's still winning that race. People looked at that last quarter, or at least the last month of the last quarter, and said, "Oh, they didn't do well in Germany." Well, that was a function of just that drop in the German tax breaks that they were giving. That happened just right at the end of the period. And so that 1 month is not really something you can use. But if you look at the year, Tesla continues to do extremely well in Europe, but Mercedes, Volkswagen, BMW are still in the race. Whereas here in the US, the US auto manufacturers are not in the race. And Stellantis is one of them. That's one of those international companies that's not in the race either, as is not Toyota.
Okay, yeah, Volkswagen's cut their employees by 1/3. So Danny Monroe saying that they're just not going to be able to make it, as far as he can see. So
they have to kill an ICE. They have to kill an ICE company. So
to kill it first to be able to. Yeah,
you can't confuse two issues. You can't confuse the dying ICE business with the growing EV business. The growing EV business is a business. The dying ICE business is, a cash. It's a cash strategy. How do we minimize the cash loss or maximize how much cash we get out of that while we're building the EV? And don't count the Germans out. Do not count the Germans out. They will find their feet on, in the EV space, because they have to.
Yeah. So the growth of the electric vehicle market in China, it's actually 4 out of 10 cars being sold is already electric vehicles. And they're projecting that within couple months here, by the middle of this year, it's going to be 5 out of 10. So like more than 50%. This is going to be the year that electric vehicles is going to overtake ICE cars in China. And then the US, we're at 10%. And so it's just, it's clear the trend.
We talked about this almost a year ago. It'll get to a point in China where it's 60% and then it's over. And ICE cars, they have to stop making them.
Yeah.
And, China is just simply the canary in the coal mine. It's got to happen here. It's only 4% now, but 3 years' time, it'll be in that, it's over. I mean, so we talked about this before, but before we get to 2030, there's going to be that cliff. They're going to drop off the cliff. And it's happening in Europe faster than it's happening in the US.
Yep. All right, let's look at other data points here. James Stevenson had this fantastic chart that he does, and he looked at the last 2 years. What is the growth rate for Tesla and its competitors? And Tesla grew its US sales by 5 times greater than the second place competitor. Here's the beautiful table that he showed. Tesla versus 2021 to 2023, Tesla grew 86%, while GM only grew 17%. And everybody else slightly just falling like this. And so here's the manufacturers that actually lost percentages.
They lost share, yeah. If you look at Stellantis, good grief. And and GM's number is kind of misleading. And you know why it's misleading? Because a vast percentage of that 17% is the Bolt.
Yes.
Think about it. How many years old is the Bolt? Is it 5? Is it 8? It's somewhere in that range. It's a long, long time ago that the Bolt came out. And so they're still selling that car. No upgrades, no updates, no refresh. And it's the bulk of their EV sales. What are they going to do next year?
Exactly. Okay, so let's take a look at another data point here. I love that table that James did. Here's Alex Voigt. Relative to BYD and Tesla, all other brands are not really growing with their BEV sales. Okay, this slide we looked at is all auto sales, by the way. Okay, this is all auto sales. This is the growth of each manufacturer for their sales compared to what they were doing 2021. This is BYD and Tesla versus other brands in
electric
vehicles.
Go back one step. Go back one step.
This one?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The reason this is terribly misleading was 2021 versus 20. That's right. That's fine. But I will just make the point. 2021 was not a great year for cars. It wasn't as bad as some, but it was anyway. But the point, it's better than if it were 2022. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a bit misleading. Absolutely. All right, let's take a look at this one. So this is 2021 to 2023 global quarter of BEV sales by brand. And you can see the yellow is Tesla and the red is BYD, and everyone else is pretty well flat. They're not growing at all from 21 to 23, except for BYD and Tesla. So the question you have to ask yourself is what's going to happen, especially when many of these brands are losing money, they've delayed their plans, they're firing employees, it's going to stay flat while these guys just continue to grow, and the separation will just continue to just be dominant.
And who is this killing? This is killing the German and the American partnerships. That was the great idea, in the last 20 years, that the Americans would partner with the Chinese automakers, and they would bring all their models and their designs and their expertise, and they'd, have a partnership with the Chinese, and then they would all win. What a disaster. What a disaster. And, this is the brilliance of Elon. Nobody could figure it out, but he won this battle. I mean, this is what made Tesla one of those amazing moves that Elon always makes that just, separates him from the rest of the crowd. And people don't understand it or appreciate it. It's an incredible moment in time, that deal that Tesla struck with the Chinese. And it's changed the world. Now, BYD has benefited dramatically, because they've been able to really get the uplift from the Chinese government. They've become the champion. And it's going to be, very tough for Tesla to remain highly competitive with BYD. But so far, so good. I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting year this year with the Model 3 refresh. And we'll see how Tesla holds its own against BYD in China. But one thing's for sure, China is lifting Tesla's game, but it's definitely not lifting the game of the Germans or the Americans, because they're not in the game at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I actually just did a show with Alexander Mertz and Frank, and we did a total expose, deep dive on the Chinese automakers, and it's incredibly interesting. I highly recommend everybody to watch this. If you're a Tesla investor, you'll learn something new. I'll be dropping that on Sunday. And so depending on when this show drops or when that one drops, but yeah, it's very incredible. At the end of the day, right, you probably agree that Tesla's not competing with BYD, right? Tesla and BYD and all these other manufacturers are competing against gas cars. The market is wide open. Every car Tesla makes will sell. Every car BYD will sell. Whether or not one's ahead of the other doesn't make a difference for years to come. Do you agree with that statement?
I do. BYD's got some strategic, conundrums on their hands. What do they do with their, hybrid stuff? What do they do with this dealership channel that they have? Because Tesla still sells direct and BYD sells through dealers. Now, it's interesting that BYD has used that channel, to its benefit. The question is whether it continues to benefit them. And then, the question is, how does BYD compete in Europe? And I think the answer is
in US.
Very well, So it's going to be an interesting year. But if I were an ICE car manufacturer, I would be very, very concerned. And in China, I would fold up shop. And they have, in fact, started folding up shop.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Larry. Follow him on X at Tesla Larry. Thanks, everybody. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.